So the concept of the fireside chat, as usual, was a brilliant idea by Mike, who usually comes up with the brilliant ideas. And it is a little warm in here, so you'll have to bear with us. Although this background is making me a little nervous, I'm kind of thinking I might have died and gone to the wrong place. But
James, water seeks its own level. That's all I can tell you.
okay. The idea is just a relaxed talk with a real captain of our industry, Mr. John Solheim. And he's a guy who really doesn't need any introduction. I mean, I've been playing pings since I was a kid. In fact, I wish I still had my set of Ping I2s. They'd be worth a mint. But John certainly understands this industry, and he's second generation, like a lot of us. I'm second generation also, greenkeeper though, not club maker. And I think we're very, very fortunate to have John take time out from his busy schedule to come over to our part of the world and share his experiences and his vision and foresight on where things are heading with the not just golf clubs. This guy, he understands the entire scope of the game, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what John has to say. So without further ado, I'm going to ask John to come up and join me in this fireside chat. We may need your mic, because this one doesn't...
Test. John, here we are. Just a second.
Testing.
Very good. So, John, I've always been told that we should start in the beginning.
I made it work, James. Sorry.
Craig taught me that. He said the beginning, middle, and end, so we'll start in the beginning. And the beginning, really, we need a little bit of... There's a lot of younger folks in the room that are my age, about 39, and they need to understand a bit about the history of ping. And most importantly, I think I'd like to ask you about a fellow who was an engineer's engineer and a guy who really understood and got it that golf is for the people. It's a people's game. So I would ask you to maybe give us a little thought or a little briefing on your father, Karsten Solheim, who founded your company.
Okay. Thank you. I mean, my dad was really a special person. I mean, he came over from Norway to the United States when he was 2 years old, was a shoemaker like his father, and hurt his hand and decided he needed to have a different way to support 3 kids. I hadn't come along yet. And the war came along and pushed him a different direction. He started working for Ryan Aircraft, and then later on at Ryan, he became the engineer responsible for the first tricycle landing gear for landing on aircraft carriers. Then went on to Convair, General Dynamics today, did the ground mount for the tracking system for the Atlas missiles, went to General Electric, did the first portable television, the cabinet for it, and rabbit ears to go with that. They thought they'd sell 40,000, they sold 4 million. Then got on another team with General Electric and did Bank of America's first computers. He was responsible for the check sorter. So just a real engineer's engineer. But when he was back in New York, some of his fellow engineers, not knowing he had never played, invited him to play golf. And that's what kicked it off. And then he started heel-toe weighting, then in perimeter weighting. Just goes on and on. I mean, and the stuff that we do today are all based on his ideas, just pushing them to a higher limit than what he dreamed was possible.
I think that really, I've been a USGA committeeman, and you have had relationships for many years with the USGA. And frankly, I think your company, your father, and yourself have been a good friend of the USGA because you spoke frankly, and told them the truth. It said that you should admonish your brother if he's heading in the wrong direction. But can you give us a little background on how it came about that your company and your dad helped to redirect some of the USGA thinking on equipment standards back in the 80s?
Yeah, well, let me go a little bit farther than
Okay.
that, because in around 1966, we had bends at the base of the grip to force you to bring the club through square to your swing. The USGA decided they didn't like that. We also had it on the putters as well as the irons and woods. And basically outlawed all the bends. Well, they outlawed all of our products. What did it do to us? Okay? Our business went to zero. But the answer putter had just come out, had a very slight bend. We changed the grip to put the offset in it, which was conforming. Within a year, our business was 10 times what it had been before. But then going into the groove issue, you know, with my dad, it was all about measurement, how to measure. They came up with this 30-degree method of measurement. That's not an engineering standard. That's something pulled out of the air. And, you know, it was very difficult, very hard times, very difficult on my dad. Took so much out of him. But the good thing about it was we were trying to get them to do the right thing. And we got a lot of movement in that direction to do the right thing, but it taught the USGA a lot about how to do business and what to do. Now, some of the stuff they did, building a war chest so they'd have money to defend and this type of thing, I wish they'd put it for developing golf instead of a war chest. But they couldn't have had a better person file suit on him because he wasn't after money. He was after getting them to do the right thing. And both the PGA Tour and the USGA, R&A lawsuits, you know, were settled really without funds coming out of any of the organizations. And, you know, it was a good settlement, but then the groove issue came back again. But, yeah, I'll end it there.
Do you think, having gone through that experience, that was really a pretty big deal? It was an antitrust action, and antitrust in the United States, for everybody who doesn't understand it, damages are subject to being trebled 3 times what you actually win. Do you think that experience taught a lesson to the golf industry in general?
Yeah, I think it really did, and yeah, it taught the industry about a lot. And you know, let's put it this way: our lawsuits were extremely strong, and especially the one with the PGA Tour. That, you know, we could have easily owned the thing. That wasn't our goal. Our goal was to get them doing things right and letting golf clubs that they had allowed in the past be able to be played. Yeah, I'll go on.
One of the things that occurs to me is what motivated your dad? He's a lot of times we focus on the professional players, the top players, but they're only a small fraction of golfers. It seemed to me that he was making golf clubs that just help people have more. I think what's been talked about this morning was having fun. Yeah. Was that a driving motivation with your dad?
Well, the guiding motivation was he started playing golf, and a brilliant engineer, and could not figure out why the ball didn't go where he wanted it to. So he started working on that problem and put the heel-toe weighting, perimeter weighting in, so that it was easier to hit. If you mishit it, it would go much straighter. It would go twice as straight as if you with a solid back club. But his goal was, you know, his own game and then everybody's game. And he revolutionized the industry and added technology to it.
Absolutely, he sure did. We've recently seen in the last year where Nike's pulled out of the golf business, and do you think this is a harbinger of things to come? What's going on in the club equipment business? Are you an optimist, a pessimist? Is the future bright in the equipment business?
I think the future is phenomenal in the equipment business. The technology that's coming out today, and I mean, it's phenomenal. The TrackMan, I used to dream of how to get the spin rate down range, and all of a sudden TrackMan comes out to us and gives me the spin rate, the whole length of the flight and the angle that it lands, and just wow. But then you add that to the finite element and the analyzing we can do. It's absolutely phenomenal. And today, there's new materials coming out. There's so much happening in technology, and it's not us that's doing it. It's other industries are developing these things, and we've got to figure out how we can take these other technologies and make them producible in golf clubs. And that's a real challenge. That's why I have a design group and an innovation group. The innovation group has to take these ideas and make them into a product that you can build.
I'm sorry to say, but your technology and your improvements have not yet helped my game.
Well,
so you have a ways to go yet.
Yeah.
That's a challenge. Mark King of TaylorMade Adidas has been also another outspoken manufacturer in the business. I think he's done a great job of calling attention that, again, the game is supposed to be fun. Maybe it's a modern takeoff on what your dad was trying to do. Do you see other manufacturers, do the manufacturers form a consensus about these things? Are they talking to the USGA as a group?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of things happening that's going on, and I was very key in getting some things happening so that the manufacturers would go together as a group. And the USGA RNA did not want to have a town hall again, which was not a good thing. And quite a few years since we had a town hall. It was up in Canada, but town halls in the past had been one-way conversations. You get up there, give a speech, your part's over. The powers to be weren't even there. They saw a report afterwards. Up in Canada, we had the full R&D staffs of the USGA and the RNA there, and they were free to speak. And the manufacturers, before we got up there, we gathered together, put together the tough ideas that needed to change to make it so we could do business and be comfortable doing business instead of having a chance of developing something and have it turned away, before you could even get it out. It was absolutely wonderful at that town hall because everybody spoke freely. It was back and forth conversations. The manufacturers got together. Each one of us put together a certain point of it, but then gave the group opinion, but then was able to give his own company opinion too. So it set the stage for stuff, and we asked them to do things different, and we worried about whether they would accept it. A few months later, we got a letter, and they accepted just about everything, and it was phenomenal.
Another thing that's happened in recent years, was maybe you have some comments about, was something I liked very much was anchoring the putter. Obviously, they went through a period of time, and then they made a rule on it. What were your thoughts on that at the time?
Well, I was totally against what they did. I still am against what they did. Anchoring allows golfers that have the yips or have whatever type of problem be able to keep playing. And, I'm surprised how well it's been accepted, the new rule, and it seems to be going all right. So I'm not complaining about what's happened, but I had a lot of friends that depended on that to keep playing, but they're still playing, so I'm happy.
Yeah, no, one thing I observe in Asia, and particularly in Northeast Asia, is we have a lot of golfers at our operation. And they come out and they play, they're serious golfers. They care about their game, but, they don't play by the rules in the book. And, for one thing that would probably send tremors through the RNA and the USGA is in Japan, they have almost every golf course, they have this thing called play four. And it's, if you go OB, you don't go back to the tee. You go up to new tee markers. Those are the 4 tees, and you drop a ball. Keeps play moving, and it keeps the speed of play up, and people have fun. So sometimes I wonder if we're not going to let the purists drive us back to featheries and hickory shafts.
Yeah, I read something recently that they may be looking at that and hopefully improve it so that take some of the penalties away and be able to drop it. That'd be wonderful.
Well, that raises the question for you about. Perhaps you don't use the word bifurcation, but the dual rules. Maybe you could chat about that a little bit.
Well, there's definitely a need for different things for the average golfer and the tour player. But I feel that we still should have one set of rules. But then in the rules, they should be able to write something that covers both. And it just to make it better. I put a proposal to the USGA and to make 3 golf balls available. Okay, a longer ball, the ball we have today, and a shorter ball. That way the tours, if they were playing a course they felt were too short, they could play a shorter ball, do what they need to do there. And the seniors and ladies could play a longer ball and maybe just let it work like different tees and, be able to play. But do it within one set of rules, make a handicap system, which we actually developed and wrote and offered to the USGA and RNA so that it would be easy to happen. They could handle this thing very easy.
Is the USGA considering, you put legal protection on the creation of how you would modify the handicapping. Is the USGA talking to you and considering implementing something like that?
Yeah. Now, let's make it clear. When I presented it to them, I figured I'd be lucky if it happened in 10 years. And basically, right after I presented it to them was the President's Cup down in Australia. And it was the talk of the President's Cup about that, considering it. And I've heard, within a year ago that they're still got it in their mind that they do. And that's how I put it out. I didn't want to jam something down their throat. I wanted to give them something they could even make better than what I suggested.
So you planted the seeds, and now we're waiting to see them germinate and grow.
Exactly.
In looking into your crystal ball for the future in club making, is there anything you can tell us that you see coming that you can reveal here at this conference?
That's pretty hard to do. The neat thing is that we're working extremely hard on developing more and more, and some of the how much design is in that golf club today is phenomenal. And I mean, it's like the driver we have out right now, we call the Dragonfly because of how thin the section is and the rib structure. Well, over 6 years ago, I was up in Yellowstone National Park and shot some pictures of this dragonfly. And then the dragonfly was really nice to me, sat there, and I got some really sharp, close pictures. I sent them to my engineers and I said, can we use this? And, quite a few years later, here it is. I mean, we've had some earlier versions, but we're keep pushing that because we want to move the center of gravity down and back. When we get it back, it makes the club more forgiving. When we get it down, we get the spin rates that we want. And every club that we've built, as it's going, is moving it farther back and farther down. And we're going to continue on that track.
You told me a story a little earlier about an experience where a professional player had a club fitting session where he was asked to point out the club that he hits the best and enjoys the best, and then your dad matched him up.
Well, this goes back to our garage, and basically my dad would invite tour players out to the garage to get a putter, and they would come out and get a putter, but we'd fit it for them for the lie, the length of the shaft, and things. But while he was there, they were there, he would ask to check their set. And on his table saw would mark out what the set is, and then ask them what their favorite club was. And they would tell them, 6 iron, 7 iron, and then he would tell them exactly how they hit all the other clubs in the bag. And they were shocked, you haven't hit my set, how would you know, But it was because the lies were wrong, the lofts were wrong. We got brand new sets from tour players that had 2 7-irons in it. The 5-iron was a 7-iron. It just, the quality control back then was ridiculous. Now the thing about it is, what he said to them was, you let me adjust your clubs and I'll make every club feel like your favorite club. They'd let him do it. They'd go out and win the next week, just time after time. And that included Johnny Miller, multiple times when he was considered the Desert Fox. Go out and shoot 61 the next day.
Speaking about those times, what about your experiences with guys? I think it was when I was a kid on my father's golf course. I remember meeting Julius Boros when I was out changing the cups on the putting green, and he was the first guy to pick up a ping putter, as I recall.
Well, yeah, he was one of the early golf pros that picked it up. And the thing about Julius, where we had a few wins before that, Julius was the first one on television. And that kind of kicked us off because our putters showed up on television, even the old ones. And, that gave us a boom, it did. And, what a gentleman Julius was. And, I loved it. He walked up the ball, hit it. He didn't wait any time. And I always remember the last time I saw him, he'd finished the 18th hole, and where'd he go? And he's over by the lake fishing.
How about Al Geiberger? That was another one of your great supporters in the early days. He was a great guy.
Oh, he's a phenomenal guy. I played in a pro-am with him one time. He gave me a hint to help my chipping that really helped, that I still use today. And he shot that 59 with his answer putter, and that was the first one. And there's been some 58s now, but his 59 was 13 under par. The 58s are 12. So it's just, a phenomenal gentleman.
Keeping on that track or going back to those times. The equipment standards people today focus an awful lot on equipment, and you hear the scaremongering stories by a lot of people, how our best golf courses in the rural are being ruined by the average drives increasing, and the players can hit further now, and they're destroying these old masterpiece golf courses. But back when Boros and Geiberger were playing, we were mowing greens at 1/4 of an inch. The ball was probably rolling about 6 feet, 7 feet at the best. And the players today have changed too.
absolutely.
Are those things being considered into the mix by the standards people?
Well, the thing about it is the standard people, the only thing they've been going after is the clubs. I mean, they haven't done anything with the ball. Not that I'm asking them to, but conditioning of the players, the training of the players, the number of solid players. I mean, I'll go in a little farther at that. And then agronomy. The agronomy, when they were coming out with the second groove rule, we sent them information on the fact that we got a hold of the old standards of the PGA Tour from one of the old agronomists and showed them what the standards were today. Basically, the fairways were as good as the greens used to be.
Yeah.
And the greens were really tight. The rough, the first cut was half of what it used to be, and the second cut went from 4 inches to 2 inches. It's just totally different. It's just phenomenal.
One of the statistics that sticks in my mind is that back in Arnie's day and Julius Boros, the average shoe size on the tour was a size 9. Today, the average shoe size is a size 13. But that's not in the equipment log algorithm, is it?
No. It just, it's amazing how far they hit that ball today. And, and I mean, you get some of these long drive deals, guys, and that's just absolutely phenomenal. Fortunately, most of them can't play the other part of the game.
Back to your company, Doug Hawken, who was your president of Ping, spent a lot of years with you, and now he's announced his retirement. So perhaps you can tell us a little bit about your succession plans for the family and where's it all going?
Yeah. Well, Doug Hawken has been a great supporter, been with us 45 years. Started at the absolute bottom and now is president, COO. Retiring the end of January. When I became president, my dad didn't want to change, never would talk about anything that considered him not being there. His health was going down. I had to do something. What I did was, at a board meeting, I said, Dad, I'd like to nominate you as chairman of Karsten Ping. I'd like you to nominate me as president. So it hit him kind of cold, even though I'd been talking to him beforehand. And he had a talk with my mom. It happened. But the problem with this was that a lot of people were worried about what was going to happen. Okay, they were happy with me, but they were worried if one of my brothers or something. I want things to happen very smoothly, very solidly. And I've got 3 sons that are very active in the business, and then one niece that's extremely active. And my oldest son, about 10 years ago, he told me, Dad, it's my turn, get out of here. So what I did is I shipped him to Japan for 2 years. 3.5 years later, I had to tell him it's time to come home. He loved it over in Japan, was looking after all of Asia. Since that, him and I communicate so much better than we ever did.
Well, I really want to thank you again for your time, and I think everybody here who lives in Asia is really glad to hear that your company now has an intimate relationship with Asia and that your son has gone through some Asian training in Japan. I'm sure it's going to pay off for the company. It sounds like you're on track and you've got a good plan, and we really look forward to seeing more exciting things from Ping and your company in the future.
No, you're going to. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in the works, and it's the most exciting time in my 57 years of building golf clubs, of the technology that's out there that we haven't been able to tap in yet. And, just look out for an awful lot in your golf clubs in the future, because we're going to keep pushing. But, no matter what you do, make sure you get fit for the clubs. It's so important.
John, again, thank you very much. And
John,
I'll turn it back over to the MC.
If I can just ask one question. I was very excited by the fact that you're stealing technology from other industries and bringing it into the golf business. Is it aerospace? Where are you getting those technologies? Who are you looking to give you the answers for materials and insights?
You better be looking every place if you're looking, because that's aerospace, yes, medical, yes, automotive, yes. I mean, you look at the aerodynamics that we're doing, you know, the turbulators that we put on top of the driver, the vortex generator in the back. And when that little slot in the back, it's like some of the semis going down the road now have these wings on the back to turn the air. Well, the other thing that it did, it stabilized the club. So there's a little bit of vibration before it's gone with that vortex generator. You can't believe the detail that we get into in what we're looking at, and you have to push.
John, my generation actually loved the machinery and the technology. I'm of the 50s. When you start talking about clubs and technology, it gets me very excited. I'm buzzed by that. The millennial generation, which we'll be talking about just a minute, do they care about the technology or do they only care about the result?
I think they care about the technology. I think that they're more gearheads than out there than you know. But they expect it.
That pleased me. Ask one more question. When somebody comes in for a fitting, have you trained your fitters so that they explain the technology to them as well as the fitting tactics that are used? Do they give them insight into the clubs, which are a miracle of science? We all agree with that. A miracle of science.
Yeah. They're supposed to. Okay. You know, but it doesn't always happen. We do a lot of training all over. You know, that's why I signed my youngest son to the education. One, he's really good in the education end of things, but to make sure that the fitters get the whole package and understand the whole package, and then absolutely use it to fit the person the best they can, and let them know what's happening. I wouldn't be pleased if I didn't know.
James.
Yeah, I'm hoping with all these new technologies and all these fields, John, maybe you can integrate some biology into the club. You could attach a new brain to mine.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give them a hand right now. Outstanding. What I actually took from this, and it's very exciting, is we have a creative genius on our hands right here. And the question I would ask right now is, where does that creativity come from? When you talk about grabbing ideas from other industries, how do you reach out and do that? Do you have people on your team that are doing nothing but looking for those new technologies?
There's people in our team that are looking for it. You know, there's some that aren't even on the engineering team that just are constantly looking for little articles that come out that, you know, that explain some things that happen. A lot of times, you know, there's a material or something, and it's just coming out, okay, in the development world. You know, they can't produce it yet. Okay, so we might be following it for 5-10 years, waiting for it to come out that it's manufacturable, and then we'll try to use it. Sometimes, you know, the new titaniums, like the one we have in the driver, you know, it had really, all the specs were really good, okay? We tried it, it didn't stand up. We rewrote the heat treat for it, it stands up today.
Yeah. So, sorry, I hate to keep asking questions, but I'm as curious as I can be. One thing that's interesting to me is, how do you make a golf club sexy? It's one thing to be a technology-oriented guy, which I am, and I'm not into industrial design. Is it not true that part of the sales of a club has to do with the look of it, what makes it unique? Where do you get those ideas from?
Well, that's one of the harder, difficult things that, you know, to make it look right, and, you know, the shelf appeal. You know, it just, fortunately, our clubs perform extremely well on the TrackMan and things, so that that gives us a little bit of grace to it. I mean, but then, you know, you got a player like Bubba Watson, and he's got to have pink, but, you know, on this latest driver that they're auctioning tonight, he wanted those cavities white. And I looked at it and the prototype, and I said, no, we're making them a dark gray, you know, in there. And we let Bubba know that's what he was getting, and he kind of, but then he saw it, and he was very happy.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give them a hand right now. Outstanding.